Hello, everybody. Hope everybody is doing fine. Welcome to Let's Talk. And Let's Talk. This is our fourth episode of Let's Talk, and it's entitled Class Conflict Within the Village. Conflict Within the Village. Come once a month for 30 minutes and have a conversation. Willie Earl, what's up, man? Sonya, what it look like? Dolores, how you doing? All right, this is our fourth episode of Let's Talk, and um, and it's just a monthly conversation, a short conversation, about 30 minutes. Dr. Cole, how you doing, madam? Y'all do me a favor and go ahead and begin sharing this post. I like it. The numbers are coming up. Loretto, what's going on, darling? Good to see you. Y'all go ahead and keep sharing this post and get these numbers up. I think the conversations are worthwhile. It's important that the conversations, what I attempt to do with the conversations, is either sow seeds or water conversations and thoughts that you've already had, but the conversations that we need in our community, and not just to think on and meditate on, but begin to also move and have action. And so I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Want to thank everybody for joining us on this monthly episode. It's always the first Thursday of the month, and so we've had some wonderful conversations. I think some of the conversations that we've had in the past, salvation without liberation is an abomination. I can't remember all the episodes, but we're on our fourth episode, and it's class conflict within the village. I want you all to talk to me and to talk to me in the chat. Give me some feedback on the conversation. I don't always expect people to agree with me. I share my opinions, and I want to hear what you say, and let's work to a place to where we can better our community, and share it with your friends, share with those that you're associated with, and have some discussions that can move us in a more positive direction. And all of us are never going to always agree, but I think if we're moving towards the same goal, I think that's when we become better off as a people. God did not create us. Some people might tell you that God created us always to be on the negative end of a disparity. God created us to always be on the negative end of statistics, but that's not true, and we see it every day. There are examples every day of many of us and many in our village that are doing well, that are achieving in life. But we have to make sure that we understand that there are systems in place that are intended for us not to achieve. And so those of us who are able to maneuver our way through those systems, we have to be willing to share and to assist others in making, not only making it through those systems, but destroying those systems. And so today, the conversation is about class conflict within the village. Class conflict within the village. And I thought about this because I was reading a book about the name. The title is Stokely A Life, and it was about Stokely Carmichael, the life of Stokely the Carmichael. Stokely Carmichael from the beginning, his early ages on through the work that he did, and I just kept noticing throughout the book there were just so many conflicts between people who you would think were on the same page, people that the society had convinced and successfully got them to be divided against one another. And but then it just reminded me of today. We have so many thoughts, so many things that we think that are truth to us, and sometimes we can't get beyond that, and we'll actually go and connect with people who we don't have much in common with, before we'll walk together, just because we don't have everything in common. And we'll never have everything in common, but I think many of us have the same end goal in mind. We have some techniques that we do differently, but we have the same end goal in mind. And so in reading that book, I just saw so much conflict within the village. And it wasn't just, it was in the Caribbeans, it was on the continent of Africa, it was in America, that black folk that had the same idea, the direction that we needed to go, but they were able to be divided. When I think of conflict, class conflict within the village, I don't see, sometimes people will say, um, sometimes people will say that it's always this person's fault or this group's fault. I don't think it's always any group's fault. I think we've fallen for stuff that keeps us divided, knowing that if we're divided, we'll never accomplish our God-given the God-given things that we were supposed to accomplish. The Bible says a kingdom divided against itself will not stand. And so I think some things when I look at conflict within the village, I think about, wealth can be a cause great conflict. Um, and many times wealth can be made available by those who, think that they control the wealth. Conflict can arise when certain groups are accepted and then they're given access to wealth, um, and others are denied access. And then what happens is, and I'm saying that you can be in the same group, but there's some that are given more access to the wealth, and others that are denied access. And then what that does, it really causes a division within that village. And because we're not dealing with this distribution of wealth in the best way, and so wealth can cause conflict based on how this third party or this other party seems to allow or provide access. Um, as believers, we believe that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. But we know here there are folk that feel that they control the flow of wealth, and and that they can distribute it and allow access. And so wealth, and I see it. Sometimes you see people, you see people in certain situations, and you have people that despise. You have poor people that despise people with wealth. You have people with wealth despise people that have not achieved or have not pulled themselves by their own bootstraps, as some might say. And then you begin to have this conflict, and you have people of the same village that are despising one another. Another thing that I think that we want to pay attention, and again, and if you disagree, go ahead and say, go ahead and put it out there. But I think the emasculation of black men, it provides a platform for conflict within the village. And when I say that, a demasculation via acceptance of black women. And some people, might completely disagree with that. Will say, black women, are the people that are, that always at the bottom, at the bottom end of opportunity and things like that. And I think sometimes what happens in our community, and I'm just telling you what I see. I see a major movement of a lot of brothers, that feel like they're being de-emasculated. I guess that's how you say it, and brought down by intentionally, accepting black women and denying black men. And and I'd really like to see how somebody feels about that. But what that can do is tear apart the village. I think we come from a very traditional background, and family has always been a major part of who we are as a people. And I think that demasculation can cause conflict within the village. And I think that was, when we go back to, the times of slavery. I think that was a major intent on the white man to demasculate the black man, to rape his wife right in front of him, to mistreat or take his children, to remove him from this place of leadership, and to make him feel like less of a man. And it was intentionally done then. And I think even now, when I look at politics, and it's such a fine dance, because okay, at one time you say, well, women were discriminated or are discriminated against, and so now you get opportunities But I think you have to look at who's behind all of this. And I think that even in the culture we exist in today, there is an effort to demasculate, to remove purpose from the black man, and in doing that, you know, you change the position. You make him feel like less of a man, in his family and in his village. And I mean, it takes nothing away from the black woman, but we have to always remember that we're together in this thing, and never allow ourselves to be divided, because it seems like that now, this when I think about politics and things like that. I know the last elections here in Gainesville, that and it wasn't just Gainesville, it was also nationally. I mean, it was a black woman had more of a chance of being elected than a black man. And that's not to turn it and say, oh, woe is the black man. But I think that if I should be able to, if I know that society is working that way and trying to, we have to be able to understand the manipulation that's going on. And then if I help the black woman to get elected, and then the black woman, not forget that we're still one, and that we're still working together for a greater good, and then not participate in the demasculation of a man. And some people might say, well, you're just being too sensitive. It's not me. I'm telling you about the reality. I'm here telling you about the talks that I hear out there, and the blogs and things like that. And we have to be sure that we don't allow the enemy to strip apart our strength. Family is strength, and the black man has a significant role in that family. And there are very deceptive people that will play on our emotions and cause us to be separated. And so, but we have to be at the place to where when whoever it is gets up there, whether it's the black woman or the black man, that we don't lose our way and become what we despise. But I think black men being demasculated is a real thing, and it causes conflict within the village. And I see you, Glenelle Bowden, to where you're saying that you agree. That's something that happens now, and we have to be, because what'll happen is we will become we will turn on each other. And Glenn Bowden says that black women are our most dependable voters, and I think we have to acknowledge that truth, and but also stay together. Acknowledge the truth, but stay together. There are a lot of black men that are out there that won't participate in the process because they say the whole process is about demasculating the black man, and we have to stay united if we're going to get the most out of the process. And so another thing that I think that really that can cause conflict within the village is a devaluation of traditional cultural values. And so there are some traditional cultural values that we have in our community. And I think that we're living in a time now to where we're trying so hard to be accepted by others who have not accepted us for more than 400 years. We're trying so hard to be accepted 16, 17, 19, 18, 19, 19, 19, 20. For over 400 years, we're trying so hard to be accepted by people that have not accepted us in over 400 years, that we literally will turn our backs on our own cultural values. There's some things that we as a culture that we just we didn't go down those roads. We didn't do. But because we're wanting to be accepted by certain groups, we find ourselves going down roads to where we don't even know who we are. And all of us are different. We're going to be different. We're going to have different things that excites us. But it's there's a disadvantage that we have. There are people. I was listening to a lady that made a post There are people that can look back for generations and generations, trace their family heritage, trace their family lineage, all back. I'm gonna tell you how far I can trace my family lineage, heritage. Okay, I'm Ron. All right, and then my mom Ida. Okay, she's 20 years older than me. I was 66, she was 46, 1946. And then we have her mother, Catherine. Bip was probably born in the 20s. Then we have Bip's father, Harmon Mosley. Harmon Mosley was born in 1904. And then we have his father, Sam. I'm back 5 generations now. We have his father, Sam. Sam was born a slave. Sam Mosley was born in, I think it was 1866. I can't trace any farther than Sam. I can just do a DNA thing and they can tell me that it seems that I'm connected to Nigeria. But as far as my people, 1866, the birth of my great-great-grandfather, I can't go back any further than that. There are people that are connected to where they come from. And they have a good understanding of who they are. We don't have that benefit. And the little that we do have, we're getting to the place to where we place so little value on the little that we do have because we're trying to be accepted and adopt cultures and values of people who have not shown a history of even caring about us to the point of being able to make a real sacrifice to ensure that justice rolls down like a mighty river. And so I think we have to, and so that causes conflict within the village when we devalue our tradition and culture. You know, as I know times change, but there are reasons why I am who I am. And I can't just throw all of that away. I have to value the things that I was taught by my ancestors. I have to value the existence of my ancestors and the things that they taught me. I have to know what those stones mean that come from my past. But sometimes we're trying so much to be like somebody else and be accepted by people who could care less about us that we devalue that, and that causes conflict within the village. I think another thing that causes conflict within the village that I need for y'all to speak up if you disagree is feminism. Feminism. you have this feminist movement, and they pull our women in, but they have a whole different agenda. Back when they pulled our women in back in the 60s and 70s, they had a different agenda. You know, they would use the race card to pull our women in, but once they accomplished, once they were able to vote, and once they were able to do all the things, they could care less about issues of Black women. They could care less about the issues that we do, and we got to be careful getting caught up in many of these movements that we go and connect with. And I've connected. I'm not telling you from somebody who ain't been. You know, I've connected with these groups. I've looked and I've gotten in there and saw that these people are in it for their own reasons. You know, somebody told me last week that they appreciate my voice because I don't mind offending people. And what I share with them is I don't need any more friends. I have enough friends. Matter of fact, I probably need to cut some are loose. But I have enough friends, and so I'm not trying to make more friends. And there's some movements out there that we get connected to: feminism, LGBTQ plus. We get connected to those movements. But when those people who are not Black in those movements, when they get what they want, when they get the policy, the legislation, the things that they want, many times they show their true color, that they're still the same people who promote the systems, but they've gotten what they wanted. They've gotten when I know a lot of people were upset when President Obama did so much, you know, because that was how he was able to get reelected, when he did so much. But President Obama did. It's a lot of naysayers out there that want to say what he didn't do because they're not doing their homework. There was a lot that was done, a lot more could have been done, but at least he did something. I mean, who's able to do everything? Most Negroes sitting around here complaining ain't did nothing, and so he did a lot. But a lot of people that we throw our energy behind, once they get what they want, they leave us standing in the cold. And that's been done with every group that's jumped along and said, hey, will you stand with us? Will you stand? Y'all got to be careful, all the people y'all standing with, because once they get their agenda, and then they're going to show you that they're still who you thought they were. And then you're left out in the cold, but you help them accomplish their agenda. And so we need to be real careful with all these groups that we jump behind. We have to have our concerns and be willing to stand by ourselves. And we can't become what we despise. Black men, especially in the church, and I know it's in other areas too, but in the church, with gender discrimination, black men, how do we do that? How do we become what we despise? We despise being treated as less than. We despise being discriminated against. We despise a lot of things. And then we turn around and do the same thing to black women. Never become what you despise. Never. You're fighting for a certain thing. You get that certain thing, and then you become the very thing you despise. We can't do that, brothers. We can't do that, brothers. It doesn't make you more. It doesn't make you more of a man because you don't respect a woman. I mean, there's nothing in scripture. Everybody doesn't live by the scripture that I live by. But all of us, none of us were created more intelligent than another. We have to understand that everybody in the village has intelligence and has word, and there's nobody that's less than. And we find out what those gifts are, what those talents are, and we work together as a group. The worst thing somebody can do in a marriage is get in that marriage and think that there are roles. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that. No, we got to come together and see where the gifts are, where the talents are, and we use those gifts and talents to come together as a whole. Guys, we can't get offended because society has allowed the woman to make more, and now we treat her bad because she's been. No, we put that wealth together. We build this thing together and train our children up the right way and come along as a group, as a unit. And so, guys, another thing that causes conflict within the village is just the idea of becoming what we despise in gender discrimination. All right, Dr. Cole, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. That's what we try to do, is to speak truth, and I really like to try to be in a way that I just make everybody mad, because I don't really want anybody. I don't want anybody to feel like you control my tongue, and you should not allow somebody to control your tongue. Speak your truth. And speaking of being controlled, another thing that causes conflict within the village is when we're controlled by an individual disbursement of crumbs. Being controlled by individual disbursement of crumbs, but limited release of power. When I think about, and believe me, I ain't no big fan of none of the parties, Democrat or Republican. There's one that seems to be a little bit more in line with the way I think, but not on every issue. And so I don't ride with them. I've never, when they tried to get me to join the Democratic Executive Party in St. Johns County, I would not do it, because you have to agree to vote blue all the way down. I ain't voting nothing all the way down. I need to know what that particular candidate thinks about the issues that affect my community. And if you're not the best one, you don't get the vote. But sometimes we're controlled by individual disbursement of crumbs. But there's little power. We got a lot of our people now that are conservative, and well, most of us are conservative when it relates to moral issues, but social issues, we got a lot more blacks that are conservative, even as it relates to social issues, and they relate more to the Republican Party, which I don't have a problem with. That's no big deal. Just be true to the game and true to the end result. But there's little release of power in that party. I mean, you got senators in the whole country. There's one black Republican senator, for the United States. One black Republican senator, but they got Negroes thinking that they love them. They love them. You got one black, and if he ever does, that's the one. I think he's from Kentucky or Carolinas up there somewhere. I forgot. Todd, no, Scott, something Scott. But that's one black Republican senator out of all the senators. You know, that's a crumb that was released and no power. Because guess what? If he ever said something that was out of line, y'all remember that woman, Omarosa? She thought she had so much power. She messed around and said something against Donald Trump. Have y'all ever heard that woman? I ain't never heard of that. I don't know if she living on an island somewhere or what, but she didn't, her tongue is not free. And so whether, I don't care what party, Democrat, Republican, if your tongue is not free, you are being controlled. And that causes conflict within the village when you can't speak your truth, you know, and that's just not in the Republican Party. I think about who was it? That young guy, I can't remember. He does the little TV show where they like rap and tell like jokes on the other people. What was this guy's name? He was married to Mariah Carey. Nick Cannon. And so I remember this thing, you know, Nick Cannon, young brother, making a lot of money, doing a lot of good things. I think he messed around and said something negative about, he was talking to a brother, I think there might have been a Hebrew Israelite or something. And he made a negative statement about Jews. And this brother got canceled because he said a negative statement about, and this brother came back whining like a, you know, because they stripped, he had no power. He had money, but he had no power. They had distributed him some crumbs, and his crumbs was in the millions. But in the same way they distributed, they could take them back. And they made that brother crawl on his knees. He had no power because he did not have control over his tongue. And you don't ever want to be in a position that causes conflict within the village. You know, when your tongue is controlled. You know, we have a lot of people that say, okay, well, the Jews, they relate, they understand this, that. Okay, you can say all that all you want to, but do you have the ability to say something that's contrary? That's where Farrakhan. I mean, these people got this brother kicked off social media because he said something they didn't like. If somebody has that kind of power to where they can literally remove your mouth, remove your voice, because you said something that they didn't like, not whether they said so, you said something that wasn't true, but they didn't like it. Those are not the kind of people that you need to be trying to cozy up to. You better free your tongue, because that causes conflict within the village. And so now it says, you remember when the guy that was Barack Obama's Jeremiah Wright, Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Now this was President Obama's pastor. This was his spiritual leader. He was special enough to be this man's spiritual leader. He was important enough to be this man's pastor. But in order to get support from these people that felt like that thought that they saw things like Barack Obama, the fact that he was connected to a man that spoke the counter truth against America and the woes and the sins of America, he had to disconnect himself. That means you, the president, you have power, but you have no power because people can control your tongue. If somebody controls, and what that does is called conflict within the village. We never give up that kind of power. Never give somebody the kind of power to control your tongue. Never do it. Stay where you are and take your power coming at a slower rate, because when you get it, they can't take away if they didn't give it to you. And so that causes conflict within the village. That causes major conflict within the village. Seats at the table are controlled, at the table with controlled outrage. You know, they say you can sit at the table, but you got to watch the way when you get mad, you can only get mad and speak it in a way that's acceptable to us. But if you say, and so in that case right there, the Jews were fine about talking about white supremacy and this and that, because it matched, and so you have some Jews. And when I was in St. Augustine, I did a project with some Jews that came when Dr. King was there, kind of honoring them, to celebrating the 50th anniversary. These rabbis came and supported Dr. King, and but it was extremely important that I understood that we're working together in this project, but I can never allow them to control my tongue. I can never, and with that group, there was no one that did. But when and so when I point this out, I'm not saying all Jews, just like I'm not saying all white people, all this, all that. But at the same time, if we're supposed to be, if we're connecting on social justice issues, and your people are wrong, if you can't stand with me and speaking out against your people when they're wrong, we're not really in the fight together. And so many times in the Jewish community, if you say something negative about the Jewish community, it don't matter if they left or right. When they decide to cancel your behind for getting out of place, it's canceled. And so so that causes conflict within the community. When we start allowing ourselves to be controlled, I want to be at the table so bad, but now at the table, I got to control my outrage. There's certain things I can say and can't say. That's not freedom. You can't walk it. Sometimes we get hijacked by groups with agendas who have no loyalty to racial justice beyond their own victories. Some groups connect us and come to our communities for their own victories. They have no loyalty to racial justice. They're just trying to get us along. Some of y'all right now, y'all all up in arms, and y'all running around with these people talking about abortion rights and all this other kind of stuff. Y'all doing all this fighting. Y'all doing with these folks. But when it comes to your issues, where are those people going to be? And you got to be careful you don't get hijacked. You got to be careful that you don't get hijacked, because we only represent, what is it, 17, 16? We're less than 20% of the population in the United States. But we represent a third. That's over 30%, 33%. We represent over 30% of the people that's getting abortions. And so they're trying to tie and say abortions, that's a racial. And so now you're cutting this resource out for black. That you can't fool me like that. This ain't my fight. I'm fighting for my people to represent 33, a third of the people that's killing babies. Don't play it. No, I come from scripture that say, before I was formed in my mother's womb, God ordained me and knew me to be a prophet. But many of us can't speak like I'm speaking now, because if you say something like that and you're not out there saying no, you're not out there fighting. You're not out there fighting. You can't you can't be a Democrat now because you're not gung-ho and mad about this that them getting ready to overturn Roe versus Wade. No, pimping, you ain't bringing me into that right there, because there are millions of young kings and queens that's being aborted, that if they would have been born, we would have messed around and took over this population the same way when the children of Israel were in bondage. And then the next thing you know, they began to multiply like baby's kids. Now, you might be trying to control us and make sure we don't multiply and become a majority up in this thing. You ever let us get to 51% and see what happened if we got our sense? But if you convincing us that it's cool and it's some kind of how righteous, that it's morally righteous to fight to be able to take the lives of our babies, and I'm not crucifying anybody that's made the mistake, but in no way am I gonna sit and fight for somebody to kill a future king or queen that could have been something. And the way that they said, the way that they sell it when they connect it to Black Lives Matter, is saying that that if they have these babies, life is going to be so much more difficult because they don't have access to resources. And so, no, you don't kill a baby because you don't want to stay poor. No, you don't do that. You go deal with the root issue. What's causing you? What's withholding the wealth from you? What's withholding the resources? You don't go and kill. We don't go and kill our own. That's not how you fix the problem. Dealing with that don't make sense to me. And we got to be careful the kind of people that we hook up. But that causes conflict within the village. We're connecting with people that is out there want to fight and make all this noise about being able to kill our babies, and we're out there fighting with them, and that thing don't match in some of our heads. We're trying to make that thing match. That don't match. Now, no way am I connecting with these crazy Republicans, these racists, but I ain't going with you on that issue right there. Because now if one of my people go, that's fine. Go, that's fine. But we got to be smart about the things that we're doing. We got to be wise about the things we do. If I represent less than 15% of the population, but I represent a third of the 33% of the abortions. No, y'all playing tricks on me. Y'all playing games on me, right? Y'all trying to do some population control or something. And so we got to pay attention to things like that. Glenn, about so dislike black men telling me what I should not say at meetings when I'm speaking for the benefit. Yeah. You got to control your tongue, and whatever your tongue feels, you speak your tongue. Speak your tongue. Everybody's not gonna speak. I know a lot of brothers that I like that on everything I just said on the bush, they feel totally opposite, and that's fine. But guess what? This brother, I'm gonna speak what I believe, and ain't a Democrat